just unbelievable.
Houston, we have a problem.
I could have bought like 5 LaMelo balls with this money, but no.
No. Good evening, everybody. It is Wednesday night. It is Pga Dfs live before lock show, and it's the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Ben, we've got no Pro-Am. We don't got to worry about guessing the amateurs this week, although, of course, we never did. But we have definitely got some problems to discuss here this week. I'm sure many people have known about the Dustin Johnson withdrawal. We've got Houston has a problem here on the other side as well, Ben, as I bring you into the show. We've got our producer behind the glass. He is in charge of the Houston's defense during the entire show. But we don't have to talk about that. We can talk about golf here to try and keep your mind off of it. How are you feeling going into this week, given all of the news we've had?
Yeah, I mean, it's just different. I think that's one of the, I guess you could say, blessing and curse of PGA DFS. You're going to have, in the NFL, you don't just have like random weeks where no teams of any caliber play. Like there's always good quality teams. Golf, it's not like that. We've had massive withdrawals. This is a field that just got truly decimated, and it's got the field of almost an alternate event, opposite a WGC or a major. So I guess that's good. 2 courses instead of 3. I'm a fan of that. I obviously don't like a Saturday cut. I mean, what do you make of stuff like that? Obviously, this isn't the event we normally say.
Yeah, I'm smiling because you say it's kind of like an off-field event, and like my favorite players are here.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Just goes to show you what's been happening to my players lately.
That's fair. Fair.
In any case, it's just how it's working right now. But somebody just asked us about ownership projections, and I wouldn't be remiss. I got to tell everybody they're actually free today. So if you're interested in the Matthew Neesmith ownership projection, Alex just updated these about an hour ago, and I think he said he was going to take a look after NBA as well. So on Matthew Neesmith, I can give you an actual answer on that. He's projected 5.7% owned. Of course, check out awesemo.com/PGA/ownership-projections. Again, free today. And of course, if you are ready to join us on the Awesemo Plus side, packages starting at just $8.95 for the golf stuff and $29.99 for everything we've got behind the glass on Awesemo Plus. Ben, we've got so many tools. We even got a NASCAR promotion going on right now, don't we?
We do. Yeah, apparently I didn't even know the Daytona 500 is
this week
upon us. We've got you covered. Like I said, one of the things we can confidently say, if there is contests, we have you covered. I remember during the shutdown, we were
LPL.
doing everything and anything. So we absolutely have you covered. We're going to talk about some of those promos, but I just wanted to second what you were saying. Free. We get a lot of questions on what those ownership projections are like. Now's your chance to check them out. So a lot going on there. I'm excited. I guess I'm kind of excited. You brought up a good point. Like any field where I can justify playing people like Peter Uihlein, maybe it is a good thing that we're in this situation.
All right, let's talk about our first topic here, wave, weather, and withdrawal. I kind of changed the waves to courses instead because I did a little digging and of course, if you look on the surface, it looked like last year Spyglass Hill played harder than Pebble Beach. But if you dig into that, it's only because Pebble played 2 other days, I should say, easier days. The times they played Spyglass last year, the weather was terrible. So I don't think that's going to be the case. But with that being said, Ben, do you want to have your golfers play a specific course on Thursday when it's going to be good temperatures versus Friday when it's going to be pretty bad weather, 20 miles per hour wind all day, mid 50s, going to be cold?
Yeah, it's going to be tricky. I mean, I don't know how big it's because Monterey is gone, and I think that would have been the answer, but we don't have that. I don't want to say luxury. I think I would rather have my guys play Pebble first, but that may be wrong. I really don't know. What do you make of the difference? These are both par 72s. They're both short.
Yep. Is
there a significant difference in terms of, you think, in terms of wind, weather, things like that you would rather be on Spyglass one of those days?
I looked at the stats round by round last year, and the scoring averages were roughly the same on the really bad day. There was, again, one of 3 was the bad days last year. 2 of the other days were decent, kind of like what we're going to get tomorrow. There was no difference. So honestly, it doesn't matter to me. But if you'd rather be on the less exposed Spyglass, which it definitely is, if the wind is coming off the Pacific, Pebble is certainly more exposed. If you want to play that, I've got a couple groups for you. Spieth Fowler and Nick Taylor, along with Patrick Cantlay, Jason Day, and Siwoo Kim, they're all going from Pebble to Spyglass, as is Zalatoris, Tom Lewis, and Kyle Stanley. And on the Spyglass to Pebble side, you got Phil Mickelson, Paul Casey, Max Homa, along with Stuart Sink, Francesco Molinari, and Brand Snedeker. Those are the featured groups as well. That's why I brought them up. If you like to sweat golf Thursday and Friday morning, that's how you're going to do it through PGA Tour Live, of course. That's how I do it. It's a lot of fun. So with that being said, honestly, Ben, I'm not looking into it. Of course, tons of withdrawals, not just Dustin Johnson, right? We had Wyndham Clark, KH Lee, Padraig Harrington. Make sure DraftKings has changed it. They make those big red circles now pretty visible. Just make sure they're not in your lineups for sure. Sometimes the projections don't catch up and they sneak in there somehow.
Yeah, they do. If you get caught with a withdraw that's before the tournament in golf, you're really not paying attention because it's in giant red letters. So don't do that. A lot of guys out, and obviously, we saw this in the betting market. DJ being out after the pricing was set changes everything, because Patrick Cantlay clearly would be, 11-8, 11-9, and Paul, everyone would have got a boost up. Now the pricing is just naturally soft. So with the even playing field, it's just a different type of construction.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And I think that DJ leaving obviously is going to push more ownership up here as well. And one of those, what I want to talk to you about, the top end fade as we move down our topic list here, is Daniel Berger. I think a ton of ownership is going there, given the fact that his odds moved to 14-1 to win. And obviously his price didn't move when DJ withdrew. He's 10,100. I think a lot of people are starting there. They're also trying to play this trend, right? You got to miss a cut before you win. That's what's happened with Patrick Reed and last week's winner.
Brooks. Yeah,
Brooks. So what do you make of that? Is Dan Berger an easy click for you, or would you rather get lower ownership with someone like Paul Casey?
Yeah, I think Berger is fine. I'm not going to I've always preached, and I think a lot of people do, with good big time players, you can't overreact to some miscuts. They're going to happen, especially early in the year. And we've seen, as you've mentioned, bounce back in extreme ways. So I'm not deterred by going to Berger, but I have no problem going to Casey and certainly to Cantlay. I will say this, not that it's my optimal build by any stretch. I think that almost nobody is going to try to pair two north of 10 this week. It just feels more like a balanced build. No one wants to dip. So that's kind of interesting to me, starting like Cantlay Berger. Not a lot of people are going to do that. You get two of the big three. It doesn't feel as good as starting like DJ Rahm in stronger fields. But you know what? If one of those guys wins, it could be very, very effective.
Let's talk about weather for a second. And I will talk about it a little bit more as we go player by player. Again, it's just kind of notes as you play this and handicap this, follow this, whatever you want to call it. You notice certain players don't play well in the wind, and I've got a couple of those guys. It is going to be windy Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Does that – I'm not saying you look at like wind specialists. I'm not suggesting that. But do you look at it and say, okay, I know that strokes gained around the green is going to be more prevalent because there's going to be way more missed greens than normal?
Definitely. That's the way to approach it for me. And I talk about this a lot. I plan for different types of scenarios where guys like Noren is a good example, Spieth, Day when he used to be good, and maybe he still is. They're built for that type. And then I'll have some other guys where it's like Scott Piercy's of the guys who are just pure iron players, where if maybe it's very calm, they pick up the advantage. So I think you can plan for both, but I absolutely will do that. Better than anyone. Pebble can get crazy easy and crazy hard just depending on that wind.
Yeah, and an interesting topic, obviously Spieth being an AT&T guy and coming off his first top five in a while. He was interviewed, as he is most weeks, but certainly this week he was a focal point. And PGA Tour Sean Martin just put out, they asked him about the courses. Spieth said that the greens are running about 1.5 feet longer, which means they're just faster, 1.5 feet faster on Spyglass greens. And he said that Pebble's greens are running close to what he remembers for the U.S. Open. So I think that probably has to do with the temperature. It's just cold and they're just crisp right now. Whatever that means. Again, I think that just means strokes gained around the green. Guys that are superb iron players and are good around the green. Again, this is something that Alex and I talked about, Alex Baker, preseason, that combining those two, especially on tournaments where you cannot use strokes gained off the tee, it's so vital. So we'll certainly get into more of those golfers as we move along. So who is, if you had to pick one, top end fade? Obviously, ownership projections are free, so we can kind of talk about, the top right now. Cantlay, Berger, Day, all projected over 20%. Francesco Molinari right there too. You fading any of the four?
I'm not fading completely any of the four, but I'm not sure that I could get over on all of them too, because I don't mind really everybody. Molinari is interesting. He is playing his way back into form. There's no doubt he's risen in price, as has a lot of these guys. I'm not overly sold on. I'll tell you this. To me, Cantlay is in a different category. I feel extremely comfortable with him. He never misses a cut. He has one missed cut in basically like a full year dating back to the summer. He's been fantastic. These other guys are good players, but to me, Cantlay is in a different tier. So I'm definitely making a priority to get over on Cantlay. Then with the remaining shares, I will try to get pretty equal exposure to the rest of these type of guys.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much how I'm going. I will say, based on how I'm doing my certain lineups, again, there's a bunch of different contests. And if you follow my stuff, if you follow my winning element, I am going to run out 150 speed Cantlay lineups in the $5 drive to green this week.
Yeah, I won't be doing that.
Yeah, just going to be throwing it out there. That's what I'm going to do. Now, again, there's plenty of different contests like the $15. I won't be doing that. What I will be doing in that contest is likely taking half the ownership of Daniel Berger. I'm going to come in somewhere between 13 and 15%. Mm-hmm. I think that's my biggest opportunity to get a fade. I'm going to hope that maybe the form really isn't there, and this trend of missing a cut to winning ends up going from a miscut to a miscut. That's what I'm hoping for here. So again, just to stay true to what we are, my top end fade would be Daniel Berger, and number 2 would be Jason Day. I think I'm going to have around 12 or 13% there. So I'm going to be under on both of them.
I know his course history is immaculate. I am a little surprised. Like I don't mind Day. In fact, I kind of like him, but I thought that would be somewhat contrarian, that, he'd be 8 to 12%. And I would say, okay, you know what, I'm going to take 20%. This almost feels like the inverse, where the field is saying that. And I'm not saying I'm going to get under, but I don't know how much leverage you can get with a guy coming off a couple missed cuts. The putter is ice cold. That is important. And it's something that we have to take notice of.
So just wanted to make a note of one of our premium products here, actually, on the golf side, is our strokes gain data. And what we've done now is we've added in the most 10 recent events, and we brought it up to the most 40 recent events, and giving you all of the strokes gain information: total, tee to green, ball striking, short game, off the tee, around the green, putting, you name it. So all the stuff we just talked about, if you're an Awesemo Plus member, go on and check it out. And you can see the best performers. If you want to look at around the green, it's certainly there. And I can, of course, give everybody a hint here on looks like the last 40 rounds. Looks like Mackenzie Hughes, obviously some of the best players. So I don't think Mackenzie's playing this week, but Siwoo Kim is actually up there. And that brings me to my next topic, which is kind of the middle leveraged or the value leverage play. And Siwoo Kim is one of the ones I wanted to ask you about. Coming off of a win a couple of weeks ago, do you think that the best of him is a little bit behind us? Or do you think this is a spot we can maybe trend back to?
Yeah, I think it's obviously somewhere in the middle, not to hedge. He clearly, after a win, didn't have his best stuff at Farmers. Yep. He, for some reason, doesn't like waste management. I don't know why exactly that is. He didn't play great. So I'm not overly alarmed. You've just rattled off a lot of guys with some serious ownership up here. So if you want to get to Siwoo Kim, you better be going under on the Days, the Molinaris, not all of them, but some of them. You can't get there. So for me, he's kind of by the wayside. I think I would rather just allocate those shares to Molinari, to Will Z, maybe to your boy Spieth. I'm not exactly sure what I want to do with him just yet.
Let's talk about Willie Z for a minute here. 9,900. I think it's respectable. The guy's at 49th in the world now. Top 16. Couldn't really put together a good Sunday. Played great on Saturday. Moving day seems to be his day on the PGA Tour right now. If he could just put together a decent Sunday, I think the top 5 would be there. But is this the course for him? I mean, it seems like it might be, but we haven't seen him play in conditions yet. So I don't really know how we're going to get fared. I think, what was it, the Bermuda? He played out there. He was kind of one of the favorites. It was a windy event. He kind of snuck through the cut. I think he came in like top 25. Maybe I kind of see that hit. I don't think this is a perfect course. I would rather put my money to win, even on Daniel Berger, to be honest with you, $200 more. I'm picking Willie Z in DFS because I think we're going to get lower ownership. But if I had to go to the betting market, I'd pick Berger.
I think that's pretty fair. Yeah, I mean, we've seen he has played here, but you know what? I don't take anything from that because he's just such a different player. Obviously, this guy is getting better rapidly.
Yep.
Maybe he's that good. I don't really envision this long term being like a place he's gonna love, but maybe we don't really know. The price is warranted. I have no pushback on it. Again, $200 more for Berger, that would be a yes for me. You could pay down. The 9K range, not to bore everyone, I'm pretty neutral on it. Not to say I hate it. I think it's fine. The guys that are popular there are what I think should be popular. So I'm gonna have to find leverage elsewhere. I can't do it in the 9K range.
Yeah, obviously, if you're a crazed addict like me, 12.4% on Spieth, I mean, that's, I'll get that over the net in my sleep. I had been tampering my ownership expectations on him. I was 15% last week, obviously much more than the field. This week, I'm, creeping up into nosebleed levels, which is not something we need to discuss because that's just my own sick thing. But another leverage spot, maybe for another one of our guys that's poisonous, is Ricky Fowler. I mean, do we want to play any of him this week? For me, 12%, 2x the field, that's an easy click for me. I don't even care if he misses the cut. It's an opportunity cost.
It is an opportunity cost. Now, he's another one. He got to Waste Management. He absolutely loves that course. The putter has always been good there. He lost 3.8 strokes putting. The putter is not working right now. If that flips, we'll see. The ball striking regressed a little bit, but it's still better than the results. The putter, which is Ricky's strength historically, has let him down time and time again. I'm going to buy a little, but I kind of have tempered expectations, but so has the field. It's all about ownership with these guys. So yeah, that's kind of where I am at Ricky. He will be one of the lower owned in the 9K range though.
So one of the leverage spotters you mentioned, you kind of got to go a little bit lower in that 8K range. And I went to flat 8,000 for my biggest leverage spot here. There's a guy that has gained strokes on his approaches in 16 of 18 events and has 7 times in that 18 events he's gained over a stroke with his approaches, one of the best rates. Talk about Matthew Neesmith. The guy had the first round lead last week, stuck around all weekend, has good course history. I think this is perfect here at 5%. I was very surprised to see that.
That is a little surprising. We'll see kind of how that acclimates and where that ends up. Yeah, 11th in his debut last year here. The irons are clicking. Everything else is pretty standard, but the price is more than reasonable. Him and Matt Jones are just like there, and I actually feel pretty good with them. It feels weird, but you know what? You got to get in that mindset this week. You're not going to build teams with 6 guys that make a ton of sense.
No, and I think that goes to what you were saying is like it feels similar to a Puerto Rico Open, just with, Patrick Cantlay as your star instead of, well, hey, we got Victor Hovland last year. So those guys are kind of similar. It's a very similar tournament. So you got to accept Matt Jones, 8,000. How about Brian Harman, 8,200? I think that's actually super reasonable. Again, had a good Sunday going with Bubba Watson. Those guys got it going, got to 600 or 700 for the day. I think he failed off a little bit at that. Just a guy that can score and a guy that can putt.
He definitely can putt. Gained another 5.3 last week. The irons were bad. Doesn't seem to matter with him. Nope. It's not the ideal formula, but again, there are guys, Noren is right above him. They're not going to do it in a standard way. They can be effective. They're just different. He's not a priority, but I get it if you want to build teams that maybe lean on the short game a little bit more.
He definitely is, and he's another one of those guys on the strokes gain around the green of golfers in this field. Last 10 and 40 events, he's in the top 10, so that does not surprise me at all. Somebody asked me about Cameron Tringale in the chat. Okay. 8,500 for this guy, but 16% projected ownership. That too high for you? Is it a little easier for you to go to, say, I'm not going to ask you about Phil Mickelson.
But don't say Phil.
How about Brendan Steele, though? $100 cheaper at a third of the ownership? That seems like easy to me.
Yeah, again, this is where, unfortunately for me, I'm running into a little bit of a problem. I would rather play Tringale. I don't know if I'd rather play him, though, for 3 times the ownership. Steele is striking it fantastic, gained 8.4 at Waste Management. He just lost 5 strokes putting. I will say that I do like Tringale. I'm going to have some for sure. You can't match the field everywhere. That's how you end up raking yourself. Like you're not doing anything. So I have to find a spot that I'm different than the field. Everything we've talked about so far, I'm pretty in line with the field. And that's where it's a little difficult. You have to find leverage somewhere.
Is James Hahn a spot you're finding leverage, or do you think that his form went into the lake on 13 with his golf ball?
Yeah, I tend to think that. James Hahn, I mean, his results will show you he's very hit or miss. Out of nowhere, gains 4 with the approach, 5 with the putter. That could go away quickly. I think those shares are going to Neesmith. They're going to Jones, even Noren. Max Homa is someone I'll expand on later in the show a little bit. I really like him, though. Yeah, I think, all right, you know what? I do want to say, Jordan Klein was saying this before. We got a lot of people in here. The new time, I thought we may have some, stragglers because we've been jumping around. We got the regular crew in here. We're going to ask for some likes. If you can pump that up. And as Jason said this before, and I kind of glossed over it, I just do want to reiterate, Daytona 500 is here this weekend. I didn't really know that. We are running a weekly pass, promo code Daytona. It's half off of a weekly pass, just right under $5. Great deal, super money. Apparently, I don't know, have you ever played NASCAR DFS? It's insane.
It is, and now there's like some new scoring things that have happened, I guess. I don't know how much it's going to change the game, but I've played a little bit. It is pretty insane.
It's like golf on crack. It's nuts.
Yeah, exactly. I was following Alex's tweets the other day, and he's like, at one point, you're going to always have the nuts lineup. You just got to be watching.
And then literally, like, your lineup goes up in flames. Literally, like, there's just wrecks and cars explode. I don't know what goes on. I don't know anything about NASCAR, as you can tell, but
I might have to like get in because my son's loving cars right now. But I can tell you, I will be watching the NASCAR strategy show on Saturday with Jason Floyd and Phil Benson 10. I got to ask him how to pronounce his last name because that's the first time I've actually had to read it on air. I've just
race for the
with
prize.
Him on
That's what I call him.
Yeah, race for the prize. Exactly.
There we go. Phil, our man, Phil.
So, all right, let's get back to a little bit of golf here. Did we cover? Let's go back to the top of the 9K range. Cam Davis, Kevin Streelman sitting right there. Streelman has talked about how much he loves this course. We're not getting any discount this year, though. 8,900, appropriate price. I still found some shares, though.
I have no problem with Streelman. You get short irons and wedges in his hand. He loves this place. The course history bears that out. I will say, though, this is where I'm starting to deviate a little. I like Cam Davis. I think he's playing phenomenal. We don't know how good this guy is, seemingly getting better and better. And I like Max Homa. So he's in a sandwich spot. I think people will go to Streelman. Got a lot of familiarity with Pebble. I think him and his amateur partner, I think he had Larry Fitzgerald and they won.
They did.
Yeah. So he loves this place, but I think I'd rather pivot $100 north or south to other guys.
Yeah, those Sam Burns and Cam Davis, I will leave Homa out because I think we're on the same page there. But Burns and Davis, these two guys are actually very comparable type of players, very comparable skill sets. Is it a skill set transferable to these conditions this week, or would you rather pay the $200 for Molinari, the $400 for Spieth?
I think I would rather pay up. I may have some lineups where I say, okay, it's going to be very calm. You're going to be able to really attack. I don't know if that's likely, though. Most likely, this coastal track. This reminds me of European golf. Like I've said this before.
It does, though, yeah.
At the Open, sometimes you're watching these courses and you're just like, what is this? These guys are going to shoot 30 under because the wind isn't there. And then it revs up, and these guys, you can't stay out of the pop bunkers and whatnot. Obviously, it's a little different here. But that mentality translates. So I think that's probably towards the bottom of my build when I'm trying to optimize.
So I had a good question in chat. What's our reliance or importance of building stat models? And I'm pretty sure I know your answer. We've answered it a couple times throughout the years. I like to look at them. I like to keep a track of it in a week like this, where I certainly feel like strokes gained around the green will be much more prevalent due to the fact that they're going to miss more greens because of the wind. Sure, I'll look at it. Am I going to build out a model that tells me who the best is based on the price? Probably not, to be completely honest with you, but I certainly will look at opportunity cost and see Brian Harmon as a top 10 strokes gained around the green, 8,200. Yeah, I'll play a little more of him because of that. But not a full-blown stat model build out, not for me at least. And I think you're the same, man.
Yeah, certainly not. We have tools over at Awesemo that I definitely rely on, and I look at it, but it's all a process. To me, I lean heavier. I think my biggest edge, if I have one, is more on the game theory side, trying to understand what are people doing and where can I be different without being crazy. Like there's a lot of ways, I say this all the time, there's a lot of ways to leverage, but you're just insane. You're playing someone that nobody wants, and there's a reason for that. So how do I understand? How can I lean on the tools that Jason provides, that Alex provides, and then just change it up with my own feel and really try to match it to the contest that I'm playing?
One of those tools that you mentioned using ownership is the leverage golfer tool. So definitely check that out. I think it's a great way to look at who Alex's model is saying, hey, look at this guy based on the ownership and where I project him to finish. So definitely check that out. Okay, let's go to our fun section here where we throw out all the types of names. So chat, if you are interested in some names, go ahead and throw them out there, but I'm sure we'll get to it. It is the Make the Cut segment where first we're going to tell you if they're going to play all 4 days, and then maybe we'll give a couple seconds on them. Chris Kirk is one of those guys that's kind of popped up recently. Got his tour card back because of the second place Sony Open. He's part of my data-driven article that I write each and every week that's free. He actually is one of the best performers around the green over these last 5 events. So is that enough to get him to the weekend here? I think it is.
Yeah, I think it is. I will say I was a little disappointed last week in him. I thought he had found something. He did not play well at Waste Management. He actually lost in all 4 categories, and that is obviously not good. But if you go back before that, he had made 6 straight cuts. I think it's a blip on the radar. Not my favorite play in that range, but he is in play.
One of my favorite plays in this range, not going to lie to you, is the guy right under him, and it's Peter Putter Piping Hot. Malnati continues to get it done. Has he convinced you to play him, or are you still on the fade train?
So the thing I like about him is he has a defined skill set. It's like Cameron Champ. Obviously, it's a different skill set.
On the opposite side, yeah, great point.
I know what he's going to do. He's more projectable. So I will use him in certain spots, particularly with guys like Spieth and Noren and those types, and say, you know what? His skill set can translate. He has to gain 3 or 4 strokes putting minimum to hang in, though.
Speaking of another guy that needs to gain 3 or 4 strokes minimum putting, Brandt Snedeker. Now, he did make the cut, so maybe things are trending in the right direction. But, I mean, every time we hear about wind in California, his name is going to get tossed around. Obviously, the PGA Tour still thinks he's a big enough name to throw in featured groups. Is that enough for you to get a sweat on him, or would you rather just play him in round 1 and get the sweat that way?
Yeah, probably that. Yeah, I mean, listen, Snedeker, he can come from the clouds. He can get crazy hot. He's really not playing well, though, and I think he is one that I'm okay maybe letting go by the wayside.
Yeah, I mean, 7,800 in this field. I can't do it yet. The form just, it's not there. I know he didn't play last week, but it's just not close enough. So, okay, let's move down a little bit. I think we're both the same on Snedeker. I got this guy coming over from the European Tour. Made 3 cuts over there, all finishes inside the top 35, a top 5 in there. And he said this is his favorite course in the world. Now, I will preface it, Ben, and say Pebble Beach, if I play it someday, probably be my favorite course too. But sometimes when these golfers say that, I take note of it. Matthew Fitzpatrick at RBC Heritage, he said that. But I'm talking about Rafa Cabrera-Bello, who's got some good starts here. So is he of interest to you this week? Pretty low owned as well. I think he makes the weekend.
Absolutely of interest, and it's what you said last. 2.8% we have him projected for. This is a guy that I think quietly is getting back into form because it's been in Europe. No one's really paying attention, including me. Didn't really know what he was up to. The more I see, the more I like. I'll take a flyer with him.
Me too. Totally on board there with you. Russell Knox, I mean, from Scotland, is he going to menace the wind here? What's going on with this guy?
Nothing. I swear to God, now it's like 5 years ago. He left about 15 in the drink at Sawgrass, and I'm not sure he ever recovered. I know I certainly didn't. He's fine. I think he makes sense. I like his game here. Got to be a little better with the putter, though. It's consistently bad. So he is in play because I like the track for him in general, but I'm concerned. You got to make some putts. There's no doubt about it.
So was he one of those that was like way inside the cut line, top 20 and came to 17, or was he already made the cut? I don't remember the circumstance.
So I believe this was Saturday late and he was in contention. And he rushed. It was one of those, he rushed and he didn't go to the drop zone. He went
did it again.
And he did it again. And then he went to the drop zone and then he did it in the water again. Not good. Really not good. But yeah, he did the panic. You know when guys like they get frustrated.
I gotta go again.
He did one of those.
You gotta love it. Russell Knox. Everybody. Okay. I told you I was going to highlight a golfer that I felt was not going to play well in conditions. that I have tracked for a couple of times now in windy conditions and not played well, and that's Harold Varner. I know he popped up last week and found some form, but 20 and 30 mile an hour winds and seeing his past success, or I should say past failure, I don't see him making the weekend. It looks like he's going to be higher owned again. I'll just take the fade train this week as much as I like him as a personality and golfer. The condition thing for me is a problem.
Yeah, I mean, he came back into form, and I think that got people very interested. He's someone I think a lot of people would think are eventually going to break through. I do worry about, what he may face here. Obviously, he's, I think, more prone to win a shootout than a grinded out type of course. So maybe a splash, but not a priority. I'm in line with you.
Okay. Okay. Next, coming along is a guy that I've tried to fade. I tried to fade last week, and he just throws out like 2 eagles and 17 birdies and loses strokes on the approach every single time he basically tees it up. No, he's been a little bit better, but I'm talking about Patton Kizzire.
No, you were right.
10% owned plus this week. Yeah, what's going on? Are we done with him?
I'm not done with him. I was never there to begin with. I mean, his irons are atrocious. He does it in wizard ways. He does have a little of that formula that I've talked about with Wyndham Clark, where he gains off the tee and gains with the putter. Yep. But historically, he doesn't gain off the tee. So it's really nothing that I can point to. Maybe there's something there. I'll let other people see that. I don't.
3 over on Sunday, and the tee to green for the week was losing of almost 9 strokes. Not 9 strokes. I'm sorry, almost 3 strokes. I was looking at Jimmy Walker above him. Jimmy Walker, on the other hand, nowhere near him right now. Okay, yeah, couple more guys as we move in the Kizzire range. Rory Sabatini, he's played well here once, and then I got a guy that I'll just throw him in there too. I'm pretty high on this week, so I think he's going to make the cut. It's Nick Taylor, defending champion. I think he's in a good spot. Rory Sabatini, though, I think he's fine. He's in line for a top 40, something like that. I think he'll make the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Sabatini kind of always feels like that fringe cash play that I'm not going to really get to. Makes cuts, rarely contends. For cash this week, if you are playing it, I personally think most people are going to go balanced in cash, and they generally do. I don't think it's crazy to pay up for Cantlay, though, if you can fit him.
And starting with Sabatini in this range actually would help you get to Cantlay.
Yeah, there are guys in the mid 7s that you could look to. I think people will more likely go like Neesmith, Jones, Tringale, and go very balanced.
Harmon in there as well, yep.
Yeah, and I have no problem with Nick Taylor. I also think he makes the weekend.
Well, Maverick McNeely, California kid, driver putter combo that you mentioned. Is this a spot for him to bounce back this week?
I don't know what to make of Maverick. Obviously, he's got some talent. He's got some pedigree. But the irons are just really hurting, and they've been like that for a while. I can't really get there until I see some positive uptick.
I think I can a little bit. I mean, we had a close to a first-round lead in California, took last week off.
He shows flashes, definitely.
He does. And I think maybe that's something I should target in the round 1 or round 2 showdown plays. But I think the upside, if he could put it together for 3 days, his salary would get paid off. I know he's actually maybe a little bit more expensive than I'd rather him be. So I probably won't get to him all that much, but certainly some. A guy that maybe I'm a little concerned about the conditions again with, it's Doug Gim. We've seen the ball striking really come around. We saw the top 5 happen. Is this a good spot for him, or are you a little concerned as well?
Yeah, I'm not super keen to play him. I do think that he has a wide range of outcomes with talent in general, so I think he could overcome it, even if it's not a great fit, kind of like Zalatoris in a way. Mm-hmm. I like Scott Stallings at the same price. I think that's someone no one's going to go to, and he has some things that I like here, whether it's the approach game, finally made a cut at Waste Management. So I'd rather play Stallings than Doug Gim.
Yeah, it was actually, this is a wicked weird stat. I'm sorry that I'm bringing it up because it's really irrelevant, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. He was the leading point getter for golfers that missed the cut after round 3 last year, and was part of the the winning lineup because of that. He scored like 53 points in 3 rounds, and that's what happens.
I got to talk to these people. The people win with 5 of 6. Like, I get 66. I still don't get, like, these people got wizard. Oh, my guy withdrew, but I still took it down. Like, that's not a sentence that I'll ever utter ever.
But yeah, same here. People. It just doesn't happen that way for me. Here's a guy, though, that if you take Jordan Spieth's comments on hand and believe them, that they are going to be, Pebble's going to be tough, not U.S. Open tough, but tough. Ches Reavie sounds like a guy that I'm ready to buy into. I just need a decent putting week. The approaches have been good. He's ranked in the top 30 this year on strokes gained on the approach. So maybe this is a buy low spot for Reavie and I can catch some good form. Obviously, one of his best ever finishes outside of his win was that major finish at Pebble.
Yeah, a couple years ago, runner-up. Likes the course. Form is bad. The good news is you don't need, when I say a little will do it. For me, I would rather play Stallings. I'd rather play Stanley. Not Kevin Stadler, though. As our man Charlie hops into chat. Not gonna make it. Is he even here?
Yes, Dads is here. Yep,
good
Stads
for him. D8 points. Yeah, that's former champion. My God.
How about in this range as well, a golfer that is another one of those? If you're playing Spieth, you're playing Malnati, are you also playing Putnam?
So he is in that. I categorize, we get a lot of questions in premium Slack about like, how do we build? And one of the ways, I build by hand is I create buckets. Putnam is in the bucket with Spieth and Noren and Day and these guys that Malnati. Absolutely. He's not going to blow you away off the tee. If
Never
anything,
going to gain strokes, probably.
Like, that's being the nicest that anyone's ever said. He's awful off the tee.
Yeah.
But he does some other things immaculate, and that is an asset in some circumstances.
And I think the bottom line is it's this week, it just happens to be that this skill set is what we're targeting. So that's why a lot of these guys come up. Now it's also a lot of why these guys are here playing this week too, because they feel like they can likely contend best at a course like this. Golfer that shot 6 under on Friday, and I honestly thought was going to breeze through the cut until the cut moved really late, is Joel Damon. He shot 4 over on Thursday, bounced back with the 6 under on Friday. It looks like some people are looking at that because ownership 14%, maybe something like that. It seems a little high for a guy that's still searching for it. We know his talent is there, right? We've seen it. Still seems like maybe he's searching for it unless he found it on Friday. Then, of course, I think it's a good play.
Yeah, I mean, again, we'll see exactly where he comes in. He's even though the results are miscut, he's definitely trending upward. There's no doubt in my mind. I don't know if I'm going to get over if that's the case. So I was thinking like maybe 5 to 10% of Dahmen.
So I got a question about a golfer that only relies on his short game, and Carl would like to know if he's also in this bucket, and it's Aaron Baddeley. He had his whole family out there in the Monday qualifier last week at the Waste Management Open trucking along. It was a really good photo that was put on by the Monday Q Info on Twitter. If you go find him, it's a great little account to follow. Anyways, is Aaron Baddeley in that same bucket, or is the form just way, way too far?
I would say it's the latter. I will say, though, and you could take this for what it's worth, somehow, and I don't even know exactly why, it was a price situation, Aaron Baddeley made my betting card this week. I have a sliver of a top 10 on him and a top 5. I am not calling for that. I do not think he plays well. That was just a random ancillary. Are you going to him? To me, if he was like 6,000 flat, I might. But at 65, there are other guys I'd rather play.
You ready for this? No, you know what? I'm going to save it for the deep dive. I'm going to save this guy because there's definitely a guy that Timothy Frank has mentioned a couple times this week that I'm getting behind. I kind of have to. So we'll talk about him in a little while. Let's continue on in this price range. Of course, if you guys want to know any golfer that if we think they're going to make the weekend, just go ahead and pop in chat and ask. Kyle Stanley. Irons look fantastic. He bucked the trend last week of a bunch of miscuts in a row at Waste Management, played pretty good. I think he's fine. I think he's actually, if you want to get to Cantlay and cash, he's a way that you could absolutely help to do it.
What's not to like about Kyle Stanley? I've been playing him. I'm going to keep playing him. He's finding form. And to me, he's a mid 7K golfer in a strong field, not a weak field like this. This feels like an underprice.
Charlie Hoffman and Bo Hoag are going to be packing their bags. In my opinion, Bo Hoag has really turned into like Denny McCarthy or Jordan Spieth on the greens these last couple of weeks. It's been unbelievable. That run's going to end here at Pebble. I got them both packing their bags. How about you?
Yeah, not, hey, listen, in a field like this, anybody can find some form, but I would rather take a flyer with Ryan Moore, who was right there.
Yeah, I was about to ask you about him.
What do you make of that? So he lost 7 strokes putting. Obviously, he had major injury. He's coming back, shaking off rust. In theory, teams that are, or players or teams that are coming off long hiatuses should be rusty. Sometimes it doesn't work with South Florida, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, Ryan Moore, back to golf. Lost 7 strokes on the green. What do you think, in the player pool?
I think so. I think his price is reasonable. He's not like randomly 8,200 like he has been at sometimes. Prices come down. If it's a week where he's going to have to grind it out, I like that for him. I like that style. So, yeah, I think I'm getting to a little bit of Ryan Moore. I'm also getting to a little bit of Mark Hubbard and Stuart Sink at the same price. I think all of those guys are in play and in my player pool this week.
Yeah, listen, this is a little range that you can target. You kind of just want to know what you're getting into, though. Like Ryan Moore, you're not going to need much. Sinking them, more likely to make the cut, probably maybe a little less top end equity. Hubbard's the same way, makes a good amount of cuts. Scott Piercy is there. Can't quit him. I cannot quit that guy. I don't know why.
It's the ball striking, man.
It is.
It's just what happens there, and I get it. It's definitely a drag or something to get behind. How about Harry Higgs? We love his personality. Yeah. Can we love his golf here this week, or is he going to be drunk slamming and heading to the Genesis? LA, I should say, yeah.
I want to get to him. I like where the approach game is. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, this is a guy who off the tee is a strength. He's lost in 3 of 4 off the tee. Got to get that back because he's not a great putter. He's not a good, around the green player. Love Harry Higgs. It's just business. I think I would say it's a short week for him.
How about Patrick Rogers? Some people like to talk about him. How about him making the weekend?
Oh, boy. Patrick Rogers used to be a guilty pleasure. He's really not playing well. Lost 5 strokes with the irons in 2 rounds of Waste Management.
I'm out.
I think I'm out as well.
Yeah, I just have to be. Now I've gotten a couple of questions on some of these young players, so I'm going to throw them all at you.
Okay.
4 of them. 4 young players, all above 6,500.
How many will I know exist?
I think you're going to know all of them because I've talked about Bhatia quite a bit, so you know him already. Ogletree played at the Masters, so I know you know him. Gordon has lost us both money, so I know you know him.
Yep.
And Davis Riley played last week and made the cut, so I'm guessing you know him.
Yeah, I know of him. He's the guy that made the cut by gaining like 80 strokes putting.
And then had a terrible weekend doing it.
Yeah, he was bad anyway.
Of those 4, who make it, who don't? You can start with the number that make it and then tell me who you think it's going to be.
Okay, so I think that Will Gordon will get through.
You think there's a spot for him?
I do think there's a spot for him. Okay. He's all over the map. He gains.
He really is?
I don't mind that. You're going to find some of that. I do think the strength is in his putting. If you could just chill out with the around the green, I don't know why it's so bad for a great putter. The other guys, I don't have any real love for any of them. Bhatia is interesting always, but him and Ogletree, till I see something, I'm not going to push.
Ogletree is awful off the tee. He reminds me of kind of like an Andrew Putnam in a way. Has looked good with his approaches, looks like he's good with his short game, couldn't hit a fairway, just not good off the tee. Maybe that's the course for him. Maybe Pebble Beach is exactly where he needs to be, given the fact that with wind and everything, not many people are going to be hitting the fairway anyway here this week. So, or taking the driver out of the bag because there's a lot of, say, 3-woods or irons off the tee here, which may play into Ogletree's thing. So I do like Ogletree. I think he can get through. Bhatia, his range of outcomes, Ben, I think are probably the widest of any of the 4 at this point. 19 years old. We just don't know. I'll play him a little bit, but for me, it would go Ogletree, Gordon, Riley, Bhatia this week. In the betting markets, Bhatia is the largest, so I'll just click him because he's the largest out of all of them. Ogletree, I believe, is the shortest, the last I checked. So if you want to ride for a top 10 bet, that's what I would do. Okay. Let's see next who we got here. On my list, I got a guy that's pretty good at putting and has been known to play in some of these colder events. Troy Merritt, maybe? I know that's where we got to go here this week.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you're going to employ strategies where you're aggressive up top, these are the names in the low 7s, high 6s. Troy Merritt, in theory, fits, but he never seems to sustain it. You know what I'm going to call him is a showdown play. If you think that Troy Merritt could hold it together a little, maybe for a showdown mentality. I just have never seen him really string together 72 holes.
Yeah, somebody wants to know about John Daly.
I didn't know he was in the field, and that's the extent that you need to know. Good for John.
I'm glad. I love John. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a great entertainer, but obviously not to play here this week. How about Ryan Armour? He's a guy that definitely likes these early season and fall swing events.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he fits kind of what we've seen here, Vaughn Taylor type, Ted Potter. Like you can get.
Yeah, talk about Vaughn Taylor as well.
Yeah, I mean, those guys, listen, there's certain courses they just cannot compete. So you're never going to see, oh my God, the guy's strung together, all these great showings, because some of these courses are just not for them. Yep. This one more is. I don't know. I'm not really there on Ryan Armour. I kind of feel it's unnecessary. Good showing at Bermuda, good showing at the Amex, but other than that, it's been very quiet.
Yeah, Kelly Craft, I'll ask you about him here. I was going to talk about him in deep dives, but what's up with this? Is this a spot for Kelly Craft?
I mean, I see why people are starting to look there. He's got the combination of runner-up finish here several years ago, and the ball striking is upticked, gained in 3 straight. The finishes haven't come around, so you could call him to make a cut, and I think that's fair. I don't really see much else to really like, though. I mean, do you see where people are going there? I think it's kind of interesting.
It's okay. I don't mind it. Again, there aren't. If you give me an elevator pitch on anybody below 7,000 this week, and you had an elevator pitch about them, I should say, I'd probably listen and play them at this point because it's the field. Like,
it's so wide open. Yeah.
I'll give you a perfect example. At the Fantasy Grind, Jeff Ulrich, my co-host on Mondays, our friend and colleague over here, he's like, Sung, you'll know this week. Sure. Like, I listened to his 30-second elevator pitch. I'm in. I'll play him a little bit this week because it's one of those fields that, sure, I think Cantlay or Spieth are going to win, but we need 4 other guys in my case, or 5 of the guys if you're starting with Cantlay. So you'll know, sure, I'll throw in a couple of lineups. How about Ted Potter, though? The Wizard beating Dustin Johnson at this very tournament. His stats have looked a little bit better. He's another guy that I'm going to click probably 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I get it. For me, I would rather play Chase Seifert, who's more of like a project for me, young guy. He's got some pedigree. He's a Florida State guy. Not that that's really relevant because they're in California, but I just wanted to say that. You mentioned, I think that's a good way to sum it up. Sub 7K, you can justify a lot. So you really want to be kind of in tune with what you're doing and why you're doing it. You can play some of these guys. I just wouldn't recommend playing all of them. There's just too many guys down here. There must be, how many names do you think are in the 6s? 70?
Oh, there's got to be maybe even more, maybe even like 90, because there's 156 in this week's field. So it's insane. 2 names that are above 7K that I actually forgot to mention. I wanted to. Jim Furyk was one. We saw Steve Stricker come in the top 5 or top 6 in the optimal lineup, like crazy.
Insane.
He came in 14th here 2 years ago, so I actually don't mind Furyk. The other one, Sam Ryder, ball striking had looked good last 2 weeks, but a rough finish last week. I don't mind him here again, though. I'll play both of those guys a little bit, probably a little bit more Ryder than Furyk.
Yeah, Furyk's price is just a little too much for me. You've got Putnam, Stanley, Dahmen, Moore,
names, yeah,
all right below him. Ryder is a flat 7. He's competing with the likes of like Armour, Stewart, Pat Perez. Like, I could justify that a little easier. Troy Merritt is down there. CT Pan, who in theory I think should be good here, has just played awful though since the Masters.
Yep.
That range is really, we're kind of transitioning to the deep dives here.
Yeah, I think it's a good transition.
Really where I think you got to open it up, but it's just very difficult to organize.
So the chat mentioned the golfer that I saw Tim Frank mention here this week once or twice. Maybe he was joking, maybe he wasn't. But at 6,200, for a golfer that is an award winner of some kind in college and has won a PGA Tour tournament, then he missed about 95 cuts in a row, and now he's made 3 or 4. I'm talking about Michael Kim. Honestly, I think I'm playing him here this week. I don't see a reason not to at 6,200.
Yeah, I mean,
this is where we are.
This is where his win was probably the craziest that I've ever seen. Like, in terms of least likely winner at that given moment.
Well, at the field too. Yeah, crazy.
Like, he crushed. He gained 13 strokes putting that week. He's starting to trend upward. The putter was actually ice cold at Waste Management, and he still made the cut, which is what you would want to see. Obviously, I wish it was Anthony Kim. But
yes,
you know,
for sure.
Yeah, listen, 62 is really low. You're looking at Chris Baker is down there. Scott Harrington, I looked at, didn't get to. So I see if you're in a jam why you might be drawn to a guy striking it well.
All right, I had a question that I thought was an interesting one to bring up. The love for Brian Harman, I did see that. We talked about him. I think both Ben and I probably I like Neesmith a little bit more. I think there's probably somebody in that 8K range that you like a little bit more. Ben, correct, than Brian Harman. Was it Brendan Steele? Is that who you like a little bit more? Or?
So Matt Jones.
Matt
Jones is definitely, and like I said, we'll get to Homa.
Yeah.
I think that there's
that one. Yeah.
It's a competitive area. I would say but you could go there. No problem with Harman. Just not my preferred target. I guess.
Sorry. Oh yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's all. Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at.
A couple more deep dives that I want to talk about. I talked about Michael Kim, which again, that's just kind of where we are. You talked about Aaron Badley. You mentioned Peter Uihlein. How about the heir to the Titleist? Doesn't get that many starts anymore, but when he does, he makes the cut. He's 5 of 8 this year, so maybe at a better than 50% rate. I would like to say that maybe this is a good track for him. I don't know though.
Yeah, I mean, he's someone that is the longest term buy for me. I don't know. Obviously, it did not pan out. He is a massive, massive pedigree guy, and then he went to Europe, and he's shown some flashes, but it really, not consistent. I think coastal tracks where he can lean on his abilities around the green and with the putter are where he's best suited, and that is this. So if there's ever a time to play him, it's probably now.
Speaking of Europe, randomly we get one golfer from the European Tour over here. Last year was Kurt Kitayama, if you remember correctly.
Okay.
This year it's Min Woo Lee, who certainly has a lot of talent from Australia. He's got a sister who's also on the LPGA Tour who's pretty good. In any case, his form is bad. He's missed all 3 cuts on the European Tour to start the year. So I don't think I can play him. I know the talent's there. He's known as a bomber, so I don't think it's a great track for him. But obviously an opportunity he's not going to pass up. Not many starts that he gets on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, I always think that's very interesting. Obviously, I don't think I'm going to play him, but it's cool to see some of the crossover talent. And every so often there's a guy that does come over and, it translates really well and he plays well and really kind of jumpstarts his career a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. No doubt about that. So a couple of other ones before we get to our one and done. But before we do, I want to turn your guys' attention, of course, to Odds Shopper, which is one of the best tools out there when you're searching for your best odds. So if you guys aren't familiar with it, I'll tell you a second about it. Don't make a bet without shopping for the best odds first. Of course, betting lines change by the minute and can vary greatly depending on the book, especially in a week like this where Dustin Johnson withdraws. Man, if you had some bets in before that or even after that, certainly changes the landscape. So that's why it's important to use the Awesemo Odds Shopper tool to find the best line available on the golfer you are betting and give you that edge you need to beat the house. Of course, head on over to oddshopper.awesemo.com where we compile the best bets available for every golfer, updated in real time. Sign up for free today to track your bets and receive alerts when lines move. So let's go to our one and done before we get to our hot take, Ben. We're creeping up. We've got an NBA show coming up after this. We've got Greg and Eric going to be talking on the mic. They're going to be taking us into the late slate and winning us all that late slate money. So, Ben, one and done this week. I don't see a better tournament to use in the certain against the field than Jordan Spieth. So I'm clicking his name this week. I don't think he's ready to win Augusta, so I'm not going to pick him there. I'm going to pick him here, and I feel like less people will pick him here than will on Augusta.
Yeah, this is a weird one and done week. I've said this. I already used him, so I can't do this. But same thing I felt then at I think Amex. I feel now. I'm not going to save Cantlay. I know you will.
Yep.
I would use Cantlay if I could. I think that he's by far the best player here. Berger is interesting. I'm going to get myself into trouble because I think I'm going to use Day, and I don't know where he's at. The course history kind of sucked me in. It's a weird – these weaker field events, there's obviously 2 lines of thinking. some people say like, oh, well, this is great. I can use a guy I would never use elsewhere because he can compete here. Then there's the other line of thinking of why not use a superstar, because your odds to win are really increased. There's not that many good players. Like someone like Paul Casey, this is his best shot to win of the year. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yep. I think that's a great call. So I would probably, on my aggressive take, I think I would go with Jordan. I think on a conservative take that I don't think a lot of people will be picking is Paul Casey. I think you make a great point. Valspar's in May this year. That would be the only other spot I'd take Paul Casey because it's an absolute perfect course for him. But certainly,
he will be. Sorry to jump in there.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Don't you think he'll be so popular at Valspar considering he's won it twice?
I would assume. I think there's 3,000 entries in the Mayo Cup that you and I both play in. I would assume literally like 2,000 people are going to pick him because it's where else are you going to pick Paul Casey? So this might be a good spot for him. I think it's a pretty good one. So, all right, let's get into our hot takes, and then we will get on out of here. And so I have three. I have my main two ones, and then I've got my one that, if all things come together, I really think this is going to happen.
Okay.
But I'm also going to be called a crazy man, but I've been called a crazy man for 2.5 years, so I'm used to it by now. My two ones are Nick Taylor, top 10. I think that the form has been simmering. We know the putter is there. We know that the rest of his game isn't great, but it's good enough. Winner here. He missed the cut on the number last week, so I think we got a top 10. And to couple along with that, I think Rafa Cabrera-Bello keeps the form going. I got him coming inside the top 15 as my two. And then if all goes well this week, and Patrick Cantlay is a little bit affected by the wind that I think he has been in the past, I think Jordan Spieth wins the golf tournament by a margin of more than 3 strokes.
Oh, wow. So, just going away.
Yep, going away.
Okay. You know what? I like it. You set it up nicely there. We've got a couple hundred people watching. I'm going to ask us to pump up the likes. We're almost to 100. Let's get over 100 before we pass it off to Eric and Greg. As Jason said, grinding the late night NBA slate is one of the best things you can do. We got a new NBA show every day right before the deeper dive, so you can check that out. I'll be on it tomorrow, talking some things. Maybe I'll sneak in some player props. Who knows what we're going to do? I almost had the hot take last week. I thought that Scottie Scheffler was going to win that tournament.
Oh, you were so close.
I thought it from Thursday to midday Sunday, and it never materialized. And then he didn't even cash a top 5 ticket. Anyway, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to pick another outright, and I think that Max Homa is primed to win this tournament. He's sitting north of 30-1. It's a weak field. He was underrated good last week. It just could not get there with the putter. And in 2-win golf tournaments, you need to putt well. Gained over 5 strokes on the approach. Everything else was kind of standard, but 2 top 15s in his last 2 appearances here, coming off 2 iron showings of plus 4.5 and plus 5.9. I think it sets up pretty damn well for Max Homa. So if you're looking against the grain, if you can survive Cantlay, Casey, Spieth types, it is wide open. I'm going to call Max Homa. Gets another win on the PGA Tour.
Love that call. We know he's a California kid. It really plays well in this part of the season. Listen, I think he's a great play this week. He'll be in a lot of my lineups. Certainly the ones that don't have Cantlay, Spieth will have something like a Homa, Molinari, something in that range for sure. So love the call. Want to just direct everybody's attention for the last second to our Awesemo_com Twitter handle. We are in a race to 30,000. Listen, we're within 900. So make sure you're following us over there. We do giveaways all the time through our Twitter. Of course, follow our Instagram handle as well. We do some giveaways there. And our Alex was on Instagram live here last week. He was all dappered up. We got it going. So that was fun to watch, and he'll be doing that a couple more. So, Ben, we got Los Angeles next week, the Genesis. Really good field, much different than this week. And until then, like you said, you're going to be on the airwaves next week. So we will see everybody next Wednesday for the Genesis. Good luck at this week's AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, everybody. Cheers. What's that? I couldn't send it back to Ben. Like I had already asked him for his final